July 22nd and 23rd, 1919, that made the Black Belizean Revolution. Last year, July 22nd and 23rd, 2019, Image Factory Art Foundation and UBAD Educational Foundation do 3 community actions for remember our African ancestors' bravery when they resist the system of oppression known as white supremacy. This year, July 22nd and 23rd, 2020, because of COVID-19 and social distancing, we want to do one digital remembrance for July 22nd and 23rd, 2020. We will celebrate and remember our African ancestors. We're going and fight in a World War I, the Europe under the British West Indies Regiment by remembering and calling their names. When they come back to British Honduras, they faced racism. They couldn't get jobs. They couldn't get land. So they raised up against the white colonial system of oppression that then British Honduras.
Lieutenant O.J. Schofield, Regimental Sergeant Major F.H.E. MacDonald, Regimental Quartermaster Sergeant G.A. MacDonald, Command Sergeant Major M. Esquivel, Company Quartermaster Sergeant F. Gray, Lance Corporal P. Rosado, Lance Corporal C. Fort, Sergeant H. B. Jets, Sergeant P. Elrington, Sergeant C. C. Skeet, Sergeant R. W. Longsworth, Sergeant P. E. Vasquez, Sergeant E. A. Grant, Sergeant E. Tennyson, Sergeant I. Langfiesta, Sergeant M. M. Stain, Corporal A. Warner, Corporal G. Warren, Corporal W. C. Campbell,
Corporal C. Cornez, Corporal J. A. Wright, Corporal P. R. Gentle, Lance Corporal M. O. Hope, Lance Corporal R. M. York, Lance Corporal L. E. Vaughn, Lance Corporal C. A. Jenkins, Lance Corporal O. Harrison, Lance Corporal H. E. Rogers, Lance Corporal C. O. Middleton, Lance Corporal S. A. Apollonia, Private A. Acosta, Private A. Adolphus, Private A. Alpuche, Private J. Alford, Private G. Adderley, Private G. Anderson, Private A. Brown, Private C. H. Bennett, Private E. Brooks, Private F. Bolton, Private A. P. Bowen, Private C. A. Bowman, Private D. Betson, Private H. Baker, and Private W. Cacho.
Private W. Cacho, Private E. Canarchy, Private D. King, Private M. Castro, Private A. B. Cacho, Private S. Domingo, Private E. El Mendara, Private C. A. Ewing, Private A. Flowers, Private H. Freezer, Private E. Flores, Private R. A. Frost, Private J. A. Gill, Private A. Gutierrez, Private S. Guerrera, Private M. Griffith, Private H. Gilbert, Private A. Gabriel, Private M. Reed, Private L. Tillett, Private J. Gladden, Private W. Garola, Private W. Garant, Private K. Godoy, Private H. Gentle, Private A. Ha,
Private W. Hyde, Private J. Hamilton, Private P. Hamilton, Private E. Hulse, Private W. Headman, Private G. Henry, Private D. Auer, Private B. Ingram, Private F. Ifield, Private C. Jones, Private D. Jones, Private J. Kelly, Private W. Lanfiesta, Private T. Lino, Private J. Lemott, Private P. Lopez, Private S. Leslie, Private P. Lewis, Private M. Lorenzo.
Private R. Lopez, Private T. Morgan, Private R. McCoy, Private A. Marin, Private O. Miller, Private W. Meggs, Private L. Morgan, Private C. McCoy, Private Z. Moss, Private J. Marin, Private J. Moray, Private C. Middleton, Private F. Neal, Private J. Norales, Private C. Oliveros, Private D. Patrick, Private F. Herrera, Private G. Pollard, Private J. B. Price, Private H. A. Prince,
Private D. Prado, Private W. Parks, Private J. Rivero, Private D. Richards, Private G. Rivero, Private L. Rodriguez, Private E. Rodriguez, Private E. Seeley, Private D. Stutter, Private B. Spratt, Private E. Sebastian, Private E. Smith, Private W. Smith, Private S. Sentil, Private G. Sabido, Private L. Swayze, Private T. Taylor, Private J. Thompson, Private J. Thompson, Private G. Tillett, Private R. Panton.
Corporal A. Egan, Lieutenant Corporal B.W. Hall, Lieutenant Corporal O. Spratt, Lieutenant Corporal A. E. Goff, Lieutenant Corporal C. N. Oreo, Lieutenant Corporal E. A. Walker, Lieutenant Corporal W. B. Rogers, Private A. Taylor, Private A. Jeffrey, Private F. Vasquez, Private W. H. Vaughn, Private R. A. Welsh, Private E. A. Welsh, Private V. Williams, Private E. Wright, Private J. Wehater, Private A. Wilcox, Private C. Watler, Private D. Watson, Private J. Yearwood, and Private H.W. Yates.
Private J. Young, Private V. Salam, Private J. C. Zuniga, Sergeant J. Stanford, Sergeant B. Dalrymple, Sergeant F. Felix, Sergeant H. Ogaldes, Sergeant G. Velasquez, Sergeant E. Wills, Sergeant C. Betson, Sergeant M. Lindo, Sergeant P. Graham, Private D. Barrow, Private G. McDonald, Private J. Myvitt, Private G. Spooner, Private A. Sampson, Private H. Hamilton, Command Sergeant Major C. A. Foster, Company Quartermaster Sergeant J. H. Grant, Sergeant A. B. Clark, Sergeant A. H. Gordon, Sergeant T. H. Reed, Sergeant S. Peters, Sergeant B. Reyes, Sergeant W. Isagire, Sergeant O. Wright,
Lieutenant Sergeant H. Vernon, Lieutenant Sergeant I. Lewis, Corporal J. Berutek, Corporal E. A. Borges, Corporal C. Flowers, Corporal R. T. McCoy, Corporal B. McCoy, Corporal H. LaCroix, Corporal S. Haynes, Corporal T. Hemsley, Corporal H. Smith, Corporal C. Sutherland, Corporal A. Young, Corporal C. Savory, Corporal N. Hunt, Lieutenant Corporal J. Burrows, Lieutenant Corporal G. Pulse, Lieutenant Corporal C. Burns, Lieutenant Corporal C. McGilvery, Lieutenant Corporal P. Carcamo, Lieutenant Corporal W. Avery, Lieutenant Corporal R. Leslie, Lieutenant Corporal R. McDonald, Lieutenant Corporal T. H. Waite, Lieutenant Corporal H. Gaskin, Private T. Aden, Private M. Alecron, Private D. Anise, Private C. P. Arnold.
Private F. Anderson, Private S. Baptist, Private M. Barcelona, Private E. Barley, Private E. Brooke, Private B. Billis, Private C. Borden, Private H. Blackwood, Private J.P. Correa, Private D.G. Campbell, Private C. Castro, Private F. Castillo, Private G. Castillo, Private D. Clark, Private S. Cole, Private A. Collins, Private D. Collins, Private D. Fifth, Private C. Card, Private C. Cervantes, Private L. Diego, Private M. Domingo, Private E. Private R. Ellis.
Private C. Enriquez, Private F. Faber, Private W. Flowers, Private P. Fernell, Private J. Flowers, Private N. Francis, Private H. Franklin, Private H. Frank, Private P. Gillins, Private G. Gabriel, Private R.C. Gardiner, Private E. Griffith, Private A. Juliet, Private J. Galvez, Private G. Graham, Private T. Grant, Private J. Glenn, Private F. Garbott, Private F. Gill, Private R. Gibson, Private J. Goff, Private A. Holiday, Private J. Hendy, Private V. Holder, Private T. Hemans, Private F. Halls,
Private F. Miguel, Private F. Molina, Private F. Miller, Private F. Main, Private J. Myvet, Private E. McCallman, Private E. McCulloch, Private S. McField, Private N. McKenzie, Private D. N. McCoy, Private E. Mitchell, Private V. McBride, Private G. Neal, Private A. Olivix, Private J. Pitts, Private Pandy P, Private F. Pandy, Private A. Perry, Private J. Paredes, Private P. Pascasio, Private S. Pizzalt, Private P. Perry, Private O. Petillo, Private L. Walla, Private J. Robertu, Private J. Reed, Private J. Renee, Private M. Robertson, Private F. Ranch, Private E. Savala, Private M. A. Steen.
Private J. Hanfield, Private A. G. Harvey, Private J. Hewlett, Private O. Jervis, Private B. Johnson, Private J. Johnson, Private S. Jones, Private A. Joseph, Private E. Kingston, Private S. Kelly, Private H. H. Lopez, Private B. Lam, Private O. Lena, Private J. Lawrence, Private F. Lemole, Private J. McDonald, Private J. Mombalo, Private E. Mosley, Private S. Maldonado, Private J. Marlin.
Shaw, Private D. Smith, Private S.N. Smith, Private J. Smith, Private L. Savory, Private H. Spencer, Private S. Thomas, Private W. Tasher, Private O. Tennyson, Private A. O. Tillett, Private R. Thompson, Private L. Theus, Private G. Gillette, Private J.C. Uter, Private W. Valpe, Private E. O. Williams, Private N. Walker, Private H. Wright, Private W. Wright, Private J. Welsh, Private E. York, Private W. Young, Private M. Yates, Private W.C. Young, Private M. Martin, Private W.S. Rogers, Private S. Saunders.